What's up YouTube, it's Time Itself here to talk about the Battlefield Hardline patch 1.03. Came out with the Criminal Activity DLC, the very first DLC, June 16th, 2015. There are a lot of updates in the patch notes, many of them relating to weapon balance. We'll talk about those, but there were also quite a few changes that aren't included in the notes, and I want to get to those first. There were several changes whose general effect is to make games last longer. I seem to recall that previously Conquest and TDM had their ticket counts raised, and that's kind of whatever in my opinion because those game modes play the same for however many tickets you want to put on the counter. But in this update, both Blood Money and Heist got significant changes. The change to Heist is that when the criminals score a package, they get plus 50 tickets, though they're still capped at 100. 50 more tickets is a lot in this mode. It's a 50% increase just in the number of tickets the cops have to burn in order to win the game. And it at least creates some incentive for the cops to try and defend both packages, whereas before, losing one package really didn't matter to the cops. It made it easier, in fact, because there's just one package to concentrate on. And most of my games still aren't getting anywhere close to that 15-minute time limit. I mean, if the game goes long, it usually ends up like this, where the criminals have the package but no tickets, and if they drop it, they lose. It makes me wonder what the win ratio was between the cops and the criminals, because this update favors the criminals completely. Were the cops winning that many games? And if so, why would they choose 50 tickets? I mean, why not 20 or 30? In some ways, it's like a mercy rule. If the criminals can't even get to score one package, they're not going to make them play for those up to 50 other tickets. But if that's the case, why not break those tickets up over the other things the criminals have to do, breaking into the vault and picking up the packages? But the thing I really don't like here is that it doesn't actually create an incentive for the cops to try and hold both packages if they're worried if they're going to win or not. You're playing this as an esport, the smart way to go is to let the criminals score one of the packages as soon as possible. The ticket cap is still 100, and plus 50 turns into only plus 20 if they still have 80 tickets left, as opposed to 50. From a more casual perspective, trying to keep both packages in play is actually kind of fun. It just lends to the overall crazy nature of Heist, where you're trying to move from one side of the map to the other very quickly. But that also leads to the frustration where you're not in the right place, especially right after you've recovered a package. They just grab the package, just pop it in a vehicle, especially an armored one, and drive right by before you can do anything. It's just sort of integral to the nature of Heist, I suppose, except for the armored vehicle bit. That's just a little too good. I don't know if they're going to do anything about it. We'll see. The thing that's actually taking the most getting used to is just that games can go long, and getting lulled into a false sense of security as a cop. You think, oh, there's no way the criminals can win this, and actually they have plenty of tickets left and plenty of time. The cops start to push up, try and get a little bit more of a spawn trap on, except then they leave a hole in the back line or a flank, and the criminals run in, grab the package, and then just go right around them in a vehicle, and that's the end of that. I have to wonder what the settings are on PS3 and 360, because 150 tickets with the lower player count could make for some really, really long games. I'm also curious how editable these settings are in custom servers. You know, if you set the ticket count to 50%, does that cut this bonus number of tickets down, or does it always stay the same at 50? Of course, ticket count was tied to package count, wasn't it? Heist is weird like this, isn't it? I don't know, I think I just feel better about the whole thing if they actually publicly reported what the win rates were for the cops and the criminals. But at that point, you also kind of want to know were teams balanced, at least most of the time, and how many players were actually in the game. Because if there are more players, I have a feeling that benefits the cops more than the criminals. Another effect of this change is that these supremacy coins for Heist are going to become more common. The cops are going to try to defend both packages, which is how they get their supremacy coin, and the criminals, when they get plus 50% tickets, and there's only one package left, and they only need 50 tickets in order to get the supremacy coin, that's going to lead to them getting more supremacy coins. The change to Blood Money was just that they doubled the amount of cash required to end the game before the time limit, which, by the way, is 20 minutes. At first, that sounds a lot like just increasing the ticket counts in Conquest and TDM. The game just goes longer. Maybe you play with the map being a little bit more destroyed. That's not quite a big thing in Hardline. Sure, slightly less of the game is spent on the very opening phases of the game where everybody has just spawned in, but that's a very small percentage of the game in both those game modes normally, so it's not a big deal. Except in Blood Money, the beginning phase of the game actually lasts a long time, and increasing the ticket count does more than just make the game longer. In the opening stage of Blood Money, it isn't over just when both teams meet and start respawning. No, as long as both teams have no money in their vault, or even one team really, the other team can't go to the enemy vault and take their money. That's actually a really effective way to play Blood Money normally, because you're both taking away the enemy's cash and putting it in your own vault. It's just a little bit more risky than going to the central pile. At any given point in the game, if the enemies have 50 cash, a full squad of 5 players can go in, pick up 10 each, and then take 50 out of the enemy vault and put 50 into theirs and swing it 100 points. But if the team doesn't have any cash in the vault, you can't go steal it. There also gets to be this point in Blood Money when you realize there is enough cash in play for one team to win. And do you really want to go put more cash in play by picking it up out of the central money pile? One aspect of increasing the money count is certainly like increasing the ticket count in TDM and Conquest. It's easier to get into scenarios where one team simply cannot win. Whether or not this Blood Money change is good or bad seems to be personal preference. I'm okay with it, but I think it brings out an issue that you play both sides of the map, as cops and then criminals. And if the game goes to the time limit both times, you're looking at 40 minutes on the same map. And it doesn't play too drastically differently in Blood Money, depending on which side you're on. Yes, it's a balance thing, but come on, 40 minutes on the same map, and if you get rebalanced to the same team you had been on, then you're 40 minutes of doing the same thing. There are probably some players who really want to play those really long games. There is a tendency to call games that are simply long epic, though I rather stick to just plain long. Spots from cameras now take priority. That makes getting camera coins much easier and much more sensible. Before it was just crazy because someone else could spot the guy and then the camera wouldn't get credit. It's just goofy. Ballistic shield coins are now much easier to get. You won't need to find someone with a repair tool to help you boost for that shotgun now. And while I'm not going to say they're any more useful in terms of gameplay, you can get a fair amount of score with the coins now. But not only are camera coins and ballistic shield coins easier to get, a lot of other coins are now much easier to get because games are going longer. It's just one of the weird things about the Battlefield franchise and how they do ribbons or in Hardline coins. Because they require you to do an action a certain number of times in one game or round, having the game go longer makes them easier to get. So marksman coins, headshot coins, all that stuff. Every time the game ends, all the number of those times you've done that hadn't counted towards one of those coins were suddenly wasted. And now that games go longer, they're less likely to be wasted. As a result, I expect players to have increased score per minute due to awards. Just because they're wasting fewer of those actions. More of those are going to go towards crediting for getting coins. More coins mean more bounties. More bounties, and it's all more cash. So it's not just that players are spending more time on the map where they're all fighting together and all the crazy actions going on. No, look specifically at the award portion of score per minute, and I'm telling you, this is going to go up. Oh, and not only did they increase the length of Heist and Blood Money, but they decreased the point requirement for the Elite Player Syndicate Challenge from 30,000 to 10,000. Now, all it requires is for the game to go a little bit long and for a player to have a good, not absolutely mind-blowing game. I mean, I've never gotten anywhere close to 30,000 points in a single game, even with double XP on. The changes to the TDM spawn system, I know they're going to keep working on this for the entire life of the game, I'm sure, especially if they insist on having 64 players. But on some maps it may have improved a little bit, on others it may be worse. Everglades was absolutely terrible the time I played it, and I haven't played a whole lot of TDM in the week since the patch, so that's about all I can say on that. They significantly reduced the point requirement for the rep tiers, especially the later ones, and I have managed to pick up tier 4 on my own without a hacker a couple times, including once in TDM even. This is another way longer games are changing things. It's easier to get the higher rep tiers when you've simply got more time to work with. I think that they're still too hard, or more that they take too long to get, because you can finally get to tier 4 and then the game is probably almost over, especially if you're doing so well that you've managed to get to tier 4, it's probably helped you almost win the game at that point. So you can do all that great work racking up that score, and then you get the reward and you don't get to use it very long. You can find a general description of the balance changes to the weapons in the patch notes. If you want a detailed version, check out simthic.com. Here all I'm going to say is the Uzi and M45 are much more like the UMP45, and the MPX is much more like the MP5K. which means the Uzi and M45 are great, and the MPX is now, well, it's okay. They say they've changed the netcode, improving things, which sounds great. However, if you may remember Battlefield 4's launch, their servers were underpowered for what they were asking them to do, and that resulted in a lot of the wonkiness in the so-called netcode. I've seen a bit more of this since the last patch, though it could be due to the servers, it could be due to something else, like a player from really far away from the server just having terrible connection to it. I know Battlefield 4 is supposed to get some performance indicators that should help figure out, if this is that player or the server that's having issues. Maybe Hardline will get them too. That's good. Just every time I see netcode, it's a yay, good, and then uh-oh, I hope their servers are still powerful enough to handle everything they're asking them to do. Also fell through the map on Hollywood Heights during, I think this is the Levolution that's happening. I'm not sure what happened, but yeah, if we can get that fixed, that'd be great. I think that's already a known problem. And I also came across an invincible enemy spawn beacon. I couldn't knife it, couldn't shoot it, it just stayed there. I'm not sure what's going on. I didn't see anybody spawn on it, but I didn't exactly hang around because I started firing my gun and, well, then they all showed up and killed me. I normally haven't been a fan of patch update videos. You can just check the changelog, except here we've got a whole bunch of changes that aren't there. It's also something that Battlefield doesn't document how a lot of the changes affect things, and so an explanation seems like it would have been a good idea for players wondering what the heck was going on. Also, it's just kind of a for posterity at this point. After that June patch in Battlefield 4 last year that just broke the game, and I stopped playing until they patched it again 4 months later, it feels like I should have my own record of what actually happened when with these updates, and the video just seems like a sensible enough way to do that. With weapon balance, it's something that I'm usually not too concerned with how it was, and more with, hey, what is it now? How should I be playing right now? But recently I feel like, especially these multiplayer games, they're not about just polishing their weapon balances, they'll make some very dramatic changes, and so going back to see how those changes played out through the game's lifespan is actually kind of interesting. Of course, that may have something to do with why everyone feels like they're an expert on weapon balance. A bit of Monday morning quarterbacking. Everybody says, oh, if you just made these few very easy to describe changes, the game would have been fantastic, but for some reason the devs are just terrible and they didn't. But right now in Hardline, well, vehicles still aren't editable from the main menu. I don't know why, and I got a friend who asked, hey, what should I spend my money on? And it's like, oh, you need the secondary vehicle upgrades, those are really expensive. But you're going to have to wait until we get in a game on a map where those vehicles spawn in order to buy those upgrades. So just save your cash and remember that you have to do that. But do that, like we're all trying to spawn into a helicopter, but you need to buy your upgrades first. Just, come on, Visceral, you can fix this. Boost still seem to account on the scoreboard. I mean, it's not a big deal, but it'd be kind of nice to fix. What's going on? Why isn't that fixed yet? I'm still not sure about what the rules are on when the heist delivery point changes. The package won't be reset, it'll still be right there next to the point, and then it will get moved. I'm not sure what's going on there, it's really confusing. It makes me wonder if some of the other heist-related bugs that I've reported have been fixed yet. And lastly, my pet peeve, and Battlefield 4 does this too, though it's just a little less obnoxious. When you're just standing there holding your gun, the sight is actually above the mid-vertical line in the screen and blocks your vision. So if you're just standing there watching the horizon, your sight is in the way. I don't understand why this is a problem. Battlefield 4 turns the gun a little bit more, pointed towards the direction of forward, and so it's a little less obtrusive, but in Hardline it's just completely sideways, and there are some guns and sights that I can't run with because it's so just massively in the way of my vision. Anyway, enough rambling. Time to go back to playing Hardline. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It was useful, informative. I covered a few things that weren't in the patch notes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.